I was going to film an editing vlog, and I sat down and I felt so burnt out. When I first started writing, I thought it would always be based off of inspiration. I thought every time I sit down to write, I would love it and it would feel so creative and so expansive and it would just be so passionate. But the more I've written, the more I've realized that, like anything else in life, writing is something that comes in waves. The emotions that I have towards writing is going to ebb and flow, but it doesn't mean that I don't feel like it's right for me and that I'm enjoying it. Sometimes I'll get like really excited about writing and I'll get really into it and I'll think about it all day and I'll work this up in my brain and then I sit down to write and then the thought of actually writing is hard. It feels forceful. Hey, I'm Lily. I've been writing my debut novel for over a year, and I wanted to talk about staying consistent with writing and how I stay motivated, how I stay disciplined, because writing a book is really hard, and staying consistent through all the ups and downs is the hardest thing that I've had to learn in this process. My motivation is very fleeting. It's not very consistent. I get motivated through seeing myself grow on my journey and make progress, which makes me enjoy the process more. I've been writing for about a year and a half, especially on this project. And in that time span, I have written 3 whole drafts from scratch and I've edited most of a 4th draft. That kind of gives me more confidence in my ability to keep going because once you build that trust with yourself that you can stay consistent, it's easier to stay consistent. For me, showing up is the most important thing because that sets the tone for everything else. Where I used to base motivation off of the result that I would get. So if I was writing and I felt really inspired and I thought my writing was amazing, I would be super excited to write and super motivated. And I thought that that would get me motivated to write. I think it really comes down to having that consistent routine that builds my motivation over time. By showing up, I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to write well every single time. And I think that's something that I've had to understand with consistency, where once I start having those self doubts and I start feeling like I'm a bad writer or I don't have the talent, I start to lose motivation and that leads to me giving up and not being as consistent. But if I see it as I'm showing up every single time without fail, no matter the result, I'm going to put in effort and that's all that matters. Then I start feeling more consistent and confident in my writing practice because even just showing up, I've already done what I was there to do. You want to show up every single time to write because you don't know if that time you're going to write is going to be that breakthrough moment or having a writer's block. And I think there's no way to really guarantee if you're going to have that creative process kind of happen. You can do everything. You can set up your area, you can get a candle, you can get coffee, you can really immerse yourself in your story, and you still might get writer's block. Or you could be somewhere random and you're not really supposed to be writing, but then you have the most amazing ideas. Our creative brain, we can't really control it. We can try to harness it and embrace it and fuel it forward, but it's really hard to like control when you feel that creative energy and that creative spark. So showing up consistently in a routine is going to help you keep motivated because you won't be relying on that creative spark and that instant motivation. You'll be relying on that commitment that you've made for yourself. That consistency will lead to those moments where you have those breakthroughs. The big thing about writing is forming a habit. I read the book Atomic Habits a while ago, and it was so mind-breaking to me because as someone who studied psychology and I'm really into why we feel motivated to do certain things, why we do certain things, why we don't, I loved this idea of building habits in your life and building systems. So if you want to make any change in your life, it has to be small steps that are consistent over time instead of like a big jump. If you like don't write at all or you only write a little bit, you want to start really small so you can achieve that easily. So for me, like I started writing every single morning and I would write for 10 minutes every morning and I would put a timer on and I would just wake up and just write on my phone actually. And that it sounds really small, but that over time built a habit for me to write every day, to write every morning. Everyday moments are going to compound into exponential growth. So once you build that consistency with yourself and you prove to yourself that you can write for 10 minutes every day, then you can start building upon that. And I got up to writing around 4,000 words every day in the most peak of my progress. And you're going to have ebbs and flows again. Like sometimes you're going to not be able to write as much, and other times you will be able to write for hours. But just having that consistency of building a little bit every single day is going to lead to that long-term exponential growth. Every time you do a habit, it becomes easier and easier, where it becomes more in your comfort zone and it becomes like automatic, kind of like brushing your teeth, where it doesn't feel like something that takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of energy. It's kind of like going to the gym or eating healthy or doing anything else that is good for you. Writing is very similar, where you can sometimes have that resistance, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be good for you. This idea of habit stacking is really important, because if you have one habit and then you stack it with multiple habits, it's really easy to keep that routine going. So for example, in the morning, I'll read for 10 minutes, I'll write for 10 minutes, and then I'll do something else. And having that stacked habit of doing those two things together, it makes it easier to keep that habit going. There's a lot of negative thought patterns that can follow writing, and a lot of limiting beliefs and self-doubts. And with this, like writer's block or imposter syndrome or anything like that, that can really hurt your motivation to feel consistent. So I think it's important to have a really strong why behind why you are writing this. So there's like short-term goals, or like more like tangible goals, where it's like you want to publish this book by this date, you want to finish this draft, you want to edit this draft, you want to read this book, you want to do these things by a certain time. But what's, I think, more important is your why. Like, why are you doing this? What is in it for you that is more, that is less tangible than just an immediate goal? The reason why I want to write a book and why I'm so passionate about it is because I'm very driven to live a life that feels genuinely aligned with me and gives me time freedom, creative freedom, authority over my own finances. And I think writing is the thing that makes sense for me. Kind of this concept of like the ikigai, where it's the combination of your strengths, what the world needs, what you can monetize, and what you enjoy. And I think writing is that thing for me, where I enjoy it so much. I genuinely believe that I have talent in telling stories that can grow with time, but I do believe I have talent with stories. I know people out there want to read stories and they want new books that feel inspiring and entertaining and to enjoy. And I also know that people do make lives off of this. They make a living off of writing books, and it's possible. And I see indie authors, traditionally published authors, self-published authors, everybody out there, and I see success stories all around me. So seeing that and knowing that I can do that for other people and for myself, that is a strong why for me. So when I'm sitting down and I don't feel like writing, or it feels hard, or it feels difficult, I think about what I'm working towards, where I'm working towards the life of creating stories that help people and also help me. It's more of a lifestyle. It's less just publishing one book. It's being able to express myself creatively in an area that will fuel me and help others. And this idea of having my story out there where people can actually read it and feel connected to it and have that connection. And it's also about having that time freedom where I can wake up and just write all day. These are all things that I have in my brain. So whenever I'm feeling not motivated or burned out or something, I have that why, where I'm like, this is why I'm doing all these tasks that feel more mundane, or pushing through the hard times. Having that strong why is really important for having that structure and for having that motivation. I also think something that is really helpful with staying consistent and motivated is having a growth mindset. Having a growth mindset is really helpful with staying motivated and consistent in something so subjective and so complex as writing, because I think a lot of people lose motivation when they don't feel confident in their work and they have a lot of self-doubt. So if you're writing and you love this story and it's amazing, but then it's not coming out exactly how you want it, and the vision is not really being portrayed on the page as you envisioned it, this is really common for a lot of people. And I've always said this, and this lesson has really struck home for me, is that your skill hasn't caught up to your taste yet. And I forget where I heard that, but that was like something that changed my mindset, because I have had all these major ideas for books and stories, but then when I write, it's not there yet. And instead of being like, well, I'm not talented, I'm going to give up, I see, okay, I'm going to work on this because I can build this skill. And the more I write, the more I'm seeing myself improve. And that's proving to me that I can keep growing and I will get there at some point. And I think having this growth mindset of like, when things are hard, when you don't know what's going on, when everything feels kind of like overwhelming. Just take baby steps one at a time, and you will grow, and you will see yourself grow and evolve. And that's the most amazing thing about this whole process, is that if you want it, you can have it. You just have to put in that effort and the work, and that discipline and the consistency comes from seeing that this is a long journey. It's not just writing a book and then it's going to be perfect. It's this idea of continually growing as a writer. One day you're going to be so far ahead from where you are now, but it's just taking those baby steps every single day that has really helped me stay focused and motivated. Lastly, I think community is a huge part of staying motivated and consistent. I used to be more inconsistent with my writing because every time I'd hit a roadblock or life would get busy, I would kind of put it to the side. But once I started posting on social media and sharing my writing with the writing community, I felt so much more motivated and consistent in my writing practice because I see other people doing it, and I see that it's possible, and I see people writing consistently and self-publishing and querying and doing all these amazing things. It motivates me where it's like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I also know that people are now following my journey, which makes me feel even more motivated because I know that people are looking to me to see me make progress and to me to keep going. I started posting on social media about my writing because I knew that if I started posting about it, I couldn't just stop or give up because I knew people were watching. It's really amazing how much community can drive change and can change within yourself. If you are thinking about like being more consistent with your writing, I know it's scary, but sometimes just posting your writing and kind of like putting your story out there and then having people connect with you, that keeps you motivated because there's also this camaraderie behind like all my mutuals and all these people I follow that follow me. It's kind of like we're all working towards a similar goal, so we can all help each other, keep each other motivated. And when I feel like I'm in a rut and I look on like TikTok or YouTube and I see one of my friends and they're writing or they're publishing their book, or you're seeing people in different stages, and seeing that just keeps me going because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like it can happen. These people are doing it. I want to do it too. We're in this together. Sometimes I write and I feel like a creative genius, and other times I write and it's actually laughable how bad it is. And I think that's normal. And I think trying to have this really finite look on like, this is how I write, this is how I expect my writing to go. I think pulling back that expectation short term and seeing like every writing session that I show up to, I don't know if it's going to be good or bad writing, but it's writing. And that's what matters, because the best way to get better at writing is just to keep writing. It doesn't have to be 100% every single day. Some days you're going to show up and you're only able to give 5% or 10%, and that's okay. And other times you're going to have 100%, 150%, and it's going to be amazing. And you're going to be so inspired. But at the end of the day, over time, those days are all going to average out, and it's going to be consistent growth over time. I believe in you. And again, if I could say anything, just continue showing up, and you're going to surprise yourself with how much you grow and how much you gain confidence in your ability to be consistent. I really hope your projects are going well. Thanks for listening, and happy writing.